Thank you for the invitation. My name is Ilia Stambler. I'm a researcher at the Department of Science, Technology and Society at Bar-Ilan University in Israel. And I'm also actively involved in advocacy for research and development for health and longevity. I'm a board member of such associations as International Society on Aging and Disease, International Longevity Alliance, Global Health and Policy Institute, and the chairman of an Israeli association called Vetting Seniority, the Movement for Longevity and Quality of Life. So I will present about my main area of activity, which is longevity promotion of research and development for health and longevity. And I will argue that this is a prime example of social action based on core values, which is, of course, the topic of the present conference. First of all, what is it exactly that we promote or that we advocate for? Of course, we all want to live longer and healthier, but generally when we speak about longevity promotion, we speak about addressing the main factor that curbs our longevity and our health, which is the aging process. We see that aging is the main risk factor or even the main underlying cause of most age-related diseases, chronic diseases. So if we really wish to prevent those diseases, if we wish to extend our longevity, also healthy longevity, we need to address the main risk factor, the aging process. This is the main premise of geroscience, a proactive branch of gerontology that we promote. Now, I don't have much time to go into scientific detail, but generally there are many proofs of feasibility of such an approach, with the possibility to intervene into aging, to extend life and to prevent age-related diseases. There are several classifications of major aging processes, such as strategies for engineered negligible senescence, the hallmarks of aging, the pillars of aging of the National Institute of Health of the United States, the Geroscience Interest Group of the NIH. All these classification systems have one thing in common. They posit several main causes or main aging processes and show the possibility of intervention into every single process based on animal studies, but also some emerging human studies. So it is our goal, not just as scientists, but also as society, to bring those studies from basic level to the clinic, to move from possibility, from potential to actuality. But the main idea remains that by intervention to aging, we can extend longevity, and this idea is gradually, after about a few years of advocacy and argument, this idea is entering the mainstream. Now aging is included into the International Classification of Diseases, the ICD-11 system, not as a disease per se, but as a medical condition under two categories: as a causality or etiology of disease, as well as a set of general symptoms. So now one can address aging as a medical condition according to the International Classification of Diseases. And this was accomplished also in a large measure thanks to advocacy, thanks to social activism. I'm happy to have participated in some of the projects that led to it, that I will touch on later. But still, of course, this is just the first step, and the next steps will be to develop clinical evaluation criteria for aging and for effectiveness of intervention, and to develop the actual safe and effective therapies. But at least the first steps have already been made. Besides the therapeutic interventions, besides the scientific developments, there are still the usual lifestyle interventions that everybody knows. Of course, not everybody implements in practice, such as rest, exercise, moderate and balanced nutrition, life-affirming attitude. All these interventions have been known to improve our longevity, our health longevity, but we should not see these interventions, these lifestyle interventions, as antagonistic to the development of science. Both science and lifestyle go hand in hand, they synergize with each other, reinforce each other with the common purpose of extending health and longevity. Now we see that generally it is feasible to extend health and longevity via lifestyle improvements, via advanced science. Now the questions arise regarding the desirability. If such an intervention is possible, will it be desirable for society, for individual? Here we enter the realm of ethics, of a value judgment. The ethical questions can be divided into two categories: the principal questions regarding even the possibility of intervention into aging and extension of longevity. Some scholars argue that it is not desirable generally on principle. I belong to the school that argues the opposite, that it is desirable. And if we believe that it is desirable, then there arise practical questions. How this research should be supported by society, how the results of this research should be distributed equitably in society, what should be the various scenario or strategies to advance the field, as well as to deal with possible bottlenecks and drawbacks. Generally, the desire to extend longevity or healthy longevity derives from the valuation of life. If we value life, then logically we wish to extend it, preferably be in good health, but the primary objective is life extension itself. This is an idea that was expressed by many philosophers in our Jewish tradition. The famous religious philosopher and physician Maimonides from the 12th century stated that there is no predetermined limit to life, and insofar as we guard ourselves against any type of danger, we should also strive to preserve our life, to extend our life. And later, one of the founders of ethical theory, Herbert Spencer, argued that generally policies conducive to extending longevity are desirable on an optimistic view, if we accept the evaluation of life, but of course they will not be desirable on a pessimistic view if we do not think that human life should be preserved. And the founder of gerontology, Elie Mechnikov, claimed that the extension of health longevity is our main meaning, our main goal in life. Whatever other goals may be, he posited the possibility of some limit beyond which it may be undesirable, but we are very far from achieving this limit. So he argued that the main misfortune on Earth is that the people do not live to that limit and die prematurely, which of course entails the search for the scientific understanding of aging and means of intervention into it, extending of longevity. It is important to note that these pro-longevity sentiments were expressed by both religious and non-religious philosophers, and by pretty much every religious tradition. Such views can be found in Christianity, in Judaism, in Taoism, in Islam, as well as among atheist thinkers. So this can be seen as one common principle, one common ground that unifies all humanity. We all want to extend our life, if possible, healthy life. So this is one common value that we share, and I could go on. And in utilitarian terms, we see that longevity corresponds with pretty much every thing that we value. For example, human development index is composed of longevity, education, impact in income, and interestingly, all those components correlate with each other, and even more importantly, they synergize with each other, reinforce each other. If a person has better education, there are better chances for longevity and better income, and if he has or she has better income, there are more chances for education and longevity. So if we promote longevity, by association, we advance all the other values that we have. And we see that indeed longevity corresponds with pretty much every positive value that we have, such as peacefulness and education, intellectual activity, prosperity. The Nobel laureate in economics, Amartya Sen, claimed that mortality is an indicator of economic success and failure. Indeed, economic success and failure is best shown by the actual survival of people, not by any numbers that are written on paper. And of course, this translates directly to longevity. Also, equality is correlated with longevity, safety. So longevity can be seen as a good proxy to advance many other values. So it is an important driver for human development. But of course, not everybody agrees. There is a vast school of thought that objects to the very possibility of extending longevity. They claim this will diminish change, that it will bring mental stagnation and boredom and lack of progress and prolonged suffering, and it will negate the meaning of life, as they believe that death gives meaning to life. But of course, there is also counter arguments, such as that extended longevity will bring stability. It will increase the potential for learning and achievement, that suffering is preventable, that life has a meaning of its own. I personally subscribe to this view, and I believe that the counter arguments often derive from rationalizations, from the disbelief that that extending longevity is scientifically feasible. But if we understand that it is feasible, then also our values align with this possibility, as something very intrinsic, very deep, that we want basically to survive as long as possible. Another common argument that is raised against the life extension or against extended longevity is overpopulation. It is presumably leading to shortage of resources. It has never been seen empirically in practice. Extending life expectancy has never been accompanied by decline in resources. We see it in every developed nation. So with increasing life expectancy, there's general improvement in the quality of life. It is rather in the poor nations with high mortality that overcompensates with high birth rates. So if we really want to combat overpopulation, we need to extend the longevity, not to mention that the technologies already exist to supply the needs of the present population, probably many more people above that, but also the very same technologies that are needed for extension of longevity, the biotechnologies, will also help to address any food shortages that may arise. So we shouldn't worry about our population in relation to extended longevity. On the other hand, we should worry what will happen if we are not able to extend health longevity. If we continue to be plagued by age-related diseases, this has a very good chance to impair or even collapse our security, our social security, our healthcare systems, with the so-called burden of population aging or aging challenge, which is sometimes called euphemistically. But we see that with the extension of healthy life, even by 1 year, we can save huge amounts for healthcare, for our welfare systems, as well as promote economic growth generally by creation of new technologies. So if we really want our society to advance and not to suffer economic drawbacks, we really need to invest and develop healthy longevity. This is a task which is relevant to everybody, to the general public, to the pharmaceutical industry, to the health insurance, to regulators and policymakers, to scientists and students. All should realize the importance of aging for our society, the importance of intervention into aging, not just to extend our life and our healthy life, but also to address social shortcomings. So this is the value system that supports the extension of longevity or healthy longevity. And I really use those terms interchangeably. We see that most often the extension of longevity is accompanied by extension of healthy longevity. Sometimes the gaps are greater, sometimes are smaller. Sometimes those gaps are purely semantic or self-reported. But generally, we see that if we value life, then also the longevity is desirable. So what do we do with this value system? I believe that with any moral judgment, if we think some value is worthwhile, then we act to advance this value. As in any social movement, if we believe in some values, we also self-organize and promote it through research, development, education, lifestyle advocacy, activism. And I believe this is the same way it should be with extension of health longevity. it is still a nascent social movement, but a growing movement that supports those values. And the promotion can be done on various levels, at international levels, through various policy frameworks and framework policy documents that will benefit from inclusion of policies specifically for the promotion of aging and longevity research. And I was happy that also thanks to some of our joint advocacy, some of such framework documents were more inclusive of the goals of aging. For example, in 2017, aging was included into the WHO work program, mainly thanks to international advocacy. Also, the inclusion of aging into the ICD was a large measure thanks to advocacy. So there's a lot that advocacy can do for international promotion. Also at the national level, we need to develop sets of policy recommendations. For example, this is a set of policies that was recommended by the International Society on Aging Disease to improve funding, incentives, and institutional support for the field. That was translated to 12 languages, cited over 200 times in scientific literature, submitted to several governments. Of course, we need more such policies and more efforts to actually make them actionable, to actually bring them to practice. At the level of organizations, we need to build up our advocacy organizations, such as International Longevity Alliance, which now includes about 35 non-profit associations from 27 countries. Also our Israeli association, VETIC Association, or Israeli Longevity Alliance. We'll try to increase education awareness about the field, communication and support, analysis and data processing. All these things can be done at the level of organizations to improve the field. And of course, every one of us can advance the field individually, even without waiting for the government to adopt this agenda, without even joining any organization formally, by individual research, by studying relevant fields, by discussions, by forming discussion groups, by participation in whatever way, research, volunteering, by lobbying, supporting public initiatives in the field, just being healthy to live long enough, to live even longer, as we say. All these things can be done by every one of us, and hopefully more people will embrace this agenda and contribute. What are the results of this effort, of this advocacy? I must say this advocacy field, this activism field, is relatively young. Of course, people discussed life extension for hundreds and thousands of years, but as a social movement with institutions, with position documents, it's really quite new. Only now it is emerging from under the radar, so it is too early to count our blessings, but rather more to think about the future efforts. But still, some achievements can be mentioned. First of all, some campaigns where I was also happy to participate, such as the longevity dividend campaign from 2006, the International Longevity Day or Month campaign, where we advocate and create educational events around the world. Series of conferences, such as the International Perspective of Neuroscience that was held in 2019. Hopefully now the conferences will renew, also live conferences. The concrete policies that were introduced thanks to activism and advocacy, such as the inclusion of aging into the, or healthy aging into the WHO work program that wasn't there before. Without the activism, the inclusion of aging into the ICD as a medical condition was also largely done thanks to advocacy and activism. Here in Israel, we also advanced the field as much as we can through advocacy, through activism. For example, we managed to include the topic of enhancing research, development, education for health, longevity, and prevention of age-related disease into the Israel National Master Plan on Aging. As a result, some calls for research proposal were issued. So this is how we implement our value judgment in practice through advocacy. And of course, this is a topic that can be promoted everywhere and can be scaled up to any dimensions, locally, nationally, internationally. So there's still a lot of area for advancement, and I hope it will advance with all our efforts. So as a result of our research, of our activism based on core values, based on the value of longevity, we will see actual life extending and healthy life extending therapies in our life, in the life of our close ones. So once again, I thank you for this invitation and for this opportunity to present.